In this episode, I'm going to walk you through generating content ideas for your podcast that can help you build authority and get hired by healthcare practice owners. Most people think that authority-building podcast content means interviewing impressive guests, talking about industry trends, or publishing educational episodes whenever they have a decent idea. And that can definitely work to a point. If you're consistent, your audience will probably see you as knowledgeable. But if your real goal is to get hired by practice owners, being knowledgeable isn't enough. Your content has to prove that you understand the exact problems that practice owners are trying to solve right now, whether it's growth, leadership, marketing ROI, patient experience, and the constant tension between building a better business and not burning out in the process. We see this all the time with the podcasts we support at PodPunch. Episodes that perform well are not random conversations. They're highly positioned topics around urgent owner-level problems. For example, in the dental space, topics like building a local brand, growing a practice in 90 days with the 5K marketing budget, AI sending patients to dental offices, fixing revenue leaks, and developing better patient care systems are standing out for our clients right now because they connect directly to what the practice owners care about. So in this episode, I'll break down the content categories that build the most authority with practice owners, how to choose guests that make your show more credible, how to niche down broad topics into episodes that your ideal listener actually wants, and how to position each episode so your podcast becomes a trust-building asset instead of just another content channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is Full Funnel Podcasting. This is where we learn to grow, monetize, and systematize your podcast without burning out. All right, so let's get into how to actually build authority with your content for practice owners. The biggest mistake that consultants and marketers make is creating content about what they want to talk about instead of what practice owners are actively trying to solve. Practice owners are not usually looking for abstract thought leadership. They're looking for clarity around decisions that affect revenue, operations, patient experience, team performance, lifestyle, and long-term business value. For healthcare and dental practice owners, the first category that lands really well is growth. How do I get more of the right patients? Profitability, how do I make more without simply working more? Leadership, how do I build a team that does not depend on me for every decision? Marketing ROI, how do I know if my marketing budget is working? Technology and innovation, what tools actually matter and what is actually just hype? Patient experience, how do I improve case acceptance, retention, and trust? And lifestyle and burnout prevention, how do I grow without losing my health, family time, or sanity? And I'm going to give you some examples that are from one of our great clients, Michael from The Dental Marketer. Here are some of the titles and topics that we've been using that have been landing really well with practice owners. One of the categories is building a local dental brand that stands out in any location. And the reason this works is because local differentiation is a direct business problem. And it speaks to owners that feel like every practice around them just looks and feels the same. Another topic is how to grow your practice in 90 days with a 5K marketing budget. This works because it's like laser specific, it's practical, and it's tied to a clear constraint, a defined time frame, and a budget. Another topic that was working well is AI is already sending patients to dental offices. This works because it ties a trending topic, being AI, into an immediate owner concern, new patient acquisition, and how it all changes with AI. Another topic that's working really well, from 500K to 1 million, fix the leaks holding your dental practice back. This works because it promises to identify the hidden constraints between the current revenue and the next stage of growth. It's also super specific, that 500K to 1 million. And people love those exact concrete numbers. All right, so I want to bring it back to some practical exercises for you guys and learn just how to take your broad expertise and how to translate that into actual owner level questions that are actually going to build authority rather than just show your knowledge. So instead of saying, let's talk about dental marketing, it's a little bit vague there. Try something like why your 5K monthly marketing budget is not producing the right new patients. Another one is, instead of let's talk about AI, try how AI search is changing which dental practices get recommended first. And then instead of just saying let's talk about leadership, try the leadership bottleneck that keeps practice owners stuck in daily operations. And the core of this is authority is not built by sounding super smart. It's built by consistently naming the expensive, frustrating, high-stakes problems that your ideal clients already know that they have. All right, so let's move to building some content pillars around practice owners' real problems in the journey that they take before actually hiring you. If you want your podcast to build authority with these practice owners, your content should map to the questions that practice owners ask before they even submit an inquiry for your services. Practice owners usually move through several stages before actually hiring outside help. The first one is awareness, being something that they're doing is essentially not working. The next is diagnosis. What is actually causing the problem that they're experiencing? The next is education. They're searching for what they should understand before they fix the problem. Then it moves to trust building. Who seems to understand the situation? And then finally, the decision stage. Who can actually help me solve this? So what you can do if you're a consultant in the healthcare space is you can create podcast content for each stage of that journey. For the first stage, awareness content, the goal is to help listeners recognize a problem. Some example topics that align with awareness type content would be 5 signs your dental practice has a marketing problem, not a lead problem. Another one is why more new patient calls are not always the answer. The hidden growth leaks inside your 500K practice. And then why your local competitors are outranking you even with worse dentistry. These types of episodes position you, the host, as someone who can identify patterns the owner may have and be too close to actually see. Another category of content you can do is the diagnosis content, sort of the stage 2 of this journey for practice owners. And the goal of content like this is to help listeners understand what is actually causing the issue. Some examples for diagnosis content: how to audit your marketing budget before spending another dollar. Another one is the difference between a branding problem and a visibility problem. Why your front desk may be killing your marketing ROI, and how to know whether your practice needs SEO, ads, or better conversions. These episodes are powerful because they demonstrate strategic thinking, not just tactics. The next stage that practice owners go through in their buying journey is education. So the goal with this is to teach the listener how the solution works for their situation. Some example topics for education-based content: what dental practice owners need to know about AI and local SEO, how Google business profile optimization actually impacts patient flow, what a healthy marketing budget looks like for a growing practice, and the local branding decisions that make your practice easier to refer. These topics are especially useful for consultants and marketers because they explain your methodology without turning the episode into a full-on sales pitch. The fourth stage of this practice owner journey would be trust building content. The goal of this type of content is to show experience, values, and perspective. Some examples of trust building content would be what we learned from reviewing 50 dental practice websites. Another one is the marketing advice I'd give to a startup dental owner before opening day. What practice owners get wrong about differentiation, and why human intelligence still matters in an AI-driven dental market. This is where your personal brand becomes super important, and your point of view on the subject should be clear in your episodes. The fifth stage for practice owners is based around supporting an actual decision from them. The goal of this sort of content is to help the listeners understand what it would be like to work with somebody like you. Some examples of decision supporting content: when should a dental practice hire a marketing partner? What to ask before hiring a dental marketing agency? How to know if your practice is ready for a growth plan? And the red flags of a marketing strategy that will not scale. These types of episodes can naturally lead into your call to action because they meet the listener near the point of decision. And the key takeaway from all these examples is the best authority building podcasts don't just publish helpful content, they publish content that answers the exact questions that practice owners have before they actually trust you enough to reach out. All right, so let's get into guests on your podcast. In different ways we can use selecting the right guest to borrow trust, create contrast, and ultimately serve your listener. So guest episodes can already build massive authority, but only if the guests are chosen strategically. The most common mistakes that podcasters make is choosing guests based on credentials, popularity, or availability. A better approach is to choose guests based on what they actually help your ideal listeners believe, understand, or do differently. All right, so I'm going to give you 4 strong guest categories if your target audience is practice owners. The first one is the peer-proof guest. This is simply a practice owner, a dental entrepreneur, a healthcare founder who's basically solved the problem that your listener is facing right now. An example of this would be a dentist who built a standout fee-for-service practice or grew from one location to multiple locations. This works because practice owners trust people who have been in their shoes. Some possible episode ideas around this could be how one practice owner built a local brand without competing on price, what I'd do differently if I were starting my dental practice again, or the first 12 months of practice ownership, what no one warns you about. All right, the next type of guest that can help you build authority with practice owners is the specialist guest. This is someone who has deep expertise in a narrow area, like local SEO, AI search, hiring, case acceptance, patient financing, hygiene systems, operations, or leadership. This works because it gives your audience access to the expertise that they may not have had time to research themselves. Some episode ideas for an expertise-based guest: how AI search is changing local patient acquisition. Another one is the patient care coordinator role that can improve case acceptance. And then what practice owners should measure before increasing ad spend. And you can obviously get a little bit more specific on a lot of these examples, but they're good examples to show the kind of categories that you'll be selecting for these guests. Another type of guest that might be good for your show is the contrarian guest. This is someone who basically challenges a common belief in the industry. This might be somebody in a leadership role that's arguing that human intelligence still outshines AI in dental leadership. And why guests like this work is because the contrarian episodes create memorable positioning and give the host a chance to clarify your own perspective on the matter. Some episode ideas for your contrarian guests: why more automation will not fix a broken patient experience, the problem with copying another practice's growth strategy, or why your practice does not need to be everywhere online. And the last type of guest that might be helpful to invite on your podcast is the lifestyle and longevity guest. This is someone who speaks about health, burnout, family, boundaries, or sustainable career growth. And this is something that a lot of dental professionals and practice owners struggle with a lot because they have obviously a ton of work on their plate, all the clinical stuff, all the business stuff. It's just a lot of plate spinning. So these episodes can really provide value, managing work, family, and education, or if they're directly related to health, they can be something like the foundations of a healthy mouth-body connection. Why guests like this are really valuable is practice owners are not just business operators. They are people trying to build a successful career without sacrificing everything else in the process. Some episode ideas with this type of guest is how practice owners can grow without creating a job they hate, the healthy habits that support better leadership, or building a practice that supports your life, not just your revenue goals. And these are really great to get off the topic of just growing and revenue and all of that stuff and actually bring it back to what will truly make practice owners happy, which a lot of times is just relieving some of that burnout and that overwhelm in their profession. Before we get too much farther, I want to get some clarity on positioning yourself in these episodes, because when you're having these guests on the show, they should not be the only authority in the episode. You as the host should frame the conversation, ask strategic questions, summarize insights, and connect takeaways back to the listener's problem. So instead of saying, today we're talking with Dr. X about her practice, frame it as something like, today we're looking at how a practice owner can build a standout local brand without relying on discounts, gimmicks, or generic marketing. So once you have your positioning dialed in, here's some questions you can ask to really dial in on which guest to invite and which topic to cover. Does this guest speak to a problem that my ideal client already cares about? Will this episode help practice owners make a better decision? Can I connect this conversation back to my own area of authority? Is this topic specific enough to stand out in a podcast app? And will this still be useful in 3 to 6 months from now? And the idea behind these questions is great guests do not replace your authority, they should actually reinforce it. All right, so let's get into niching down your episodes. Because a super broad topic rarely builds authority on its own. The power actually comes from narrowing the topic until the right listener thinks, this is exactly what I need right now. And that's important because healthcare and dental audiences are not one generic group. A dental startup owner, a multi-location owner, a fee-for-service practice owner, and an associate considering ownership, they all have different priorities and goals. So before recording an episode, try to define who is this for, what stage of business are they in, what decisions are they trying to make, what pain point are they feeling right now, what belief do they currently have that needs to be shifted, and what action should they take after listening to this episode. So some examples of taking broad topics and making them a little bit more targeted. A broad topic might be dental practice growth, which raises a lot of questions like, are they talking about revenue? Are they talking about growing a bunch of practices, adding more ops, stuff like that? Like, it could be anything. So a better way to position a topic like this is how a startup dental owner can build a 90-day growth plan without overspending. Another one that might be better is what a 500K practice needs to fix before trying to scale to 1 million. Another one that's more specific is why multi-location practices need different marketing metrics than single location practices. All right, so another broad topic that you might gravitate towards if you're making this sort of content is marketing budget. So instead of just saying we're covering marketing budget today, it's also kind of vague. Try something like how to spend your first 5K on dental marketing, or what practice owners should cut before increasing their ad budget, or how to calculate whether your new patient campaign is actually profitable. Another broad topic would be just AI in general. Instead of like, hey, we're talking about AI today, try something like how AI is changing local search for dental practices, or what practice owners should automate and what should stay human, or why AI content will not save a weak local brand. Another broad topic is just leadership. Hey, we're talking about leadership today on the podcast. Try something like the leadership shift from clinical operator to practice architect, or how patient care coordinators bridge the gap between front and back office, or why your team cannot outperform an unclear practice vision. All right, so we brought up positioning earlier, and I want to break this down into a formula that you can take away for stronger episode ideas. So a good formula you can use is for specific listener, how to specific outcome without specific fear or frustration. An example of this would be for startup practice owners, how to build local visibility without wasting your opening budget. For growing practices, how to fix revenue leaks without adding more new patient demands. For fee-for-service dentists, how to build a brand that attracts value-driven patients without competing on insurance. So those are some great ways to position your episodes so you know exactly who they're trying to reach and what they're trying to solve. Another useful formula you can try in this space is doing the mistake, result, and topic combination. An example of this would be the local branding mistake that makes dental practices look interchangeable. The patient experience leak that makes marketing look like it's failing. The AI search shift that could change how patients find your practice. And with all these examples, you want to explain how this supports business development for them. When an episode is hyper-specific, it basically pre-qualifies your listeners to where a practice owner who listens to 3 episodes about startup growth, local branding, and marketing ROI is a much warmer lead for you than someone who only sees a generic marketing tips show. Super specific content gives future clients language for their own problems, which makes the eventual sales conversion easier and more collaborative. So the key takeaway from this whole episode is the more specific your episode is about the problems and struggles that practice owners are going through right now, the more authority it creates with those practice owners. If you want help with this kind of stuff on your podcast, building more authority with your show instead of just stating knowledge and educational stuff, tap the first link in the show notes below, fill out some quick questions, and we'll see if we can help you too. And if you want to hear more episodes like this, be sure to follow on whichever platform you're listening on so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for listening in, and we'll see you next time.